Now, I want to talk to you about flexible work and who gets to access it. Of course, not every industry is able to work flexibly yet. I think as innovation, as technological innovation, as we become more creative, other jobs that have been seen as completely non-open to flexible work will start to be challenged. But let's start from the start. So imagine you're working in an organization that doesn't really allow much flexible work. Now, you need to walk down the hall, you need to go knock on your supervisor's door, and you need to say, I'd like to make the case for why I should be able to work remotely. You need to say how many days it is that you're going to be working remotely. You need to say why. You need to be convincing that this reason is good enough. Part of that reason might also include the fact that you need to make the business case. Managers are kind of in this backwards-looking kind of state at the moment where they're judging flexible work when you can't see someone right in front of you as being less committed, less productive. They're not really willing to change their metrics or the way that they assess the work that's being done. It's kind of being made just by these impulse decisions about, is this person working flexibly or not? So you go into your manager's office, you make your case, you're approved or denied. Your coworker finds out that you did so. Great, I'd like to work flexibly too. I'm going to go and make my case. They have the same job, the same pay, the same performance. Imagine you got approved and they get denied. Why did they get denied? Did they not make the case as well as you did? Were they a different gender than you? Were they a parent or a non-parent? These are the kind of instances that are really weighing on flexible work decisions. So some people, especially parents, especially women, have more access to flexible work arrangements. They're more likely to be approved, and for the reasons we can all imagine, because women have been discriminated in workplaces for having to be less present, for having to work part-time. So I'm not saying that I don't want women to be able to work flexibly. I would never say that. But I am saying that my reason to care for my child or to do a school care pickup shouldn't necessarily be more important than your desire to connect with nature or to look after an elderly parent, or because you work better at nighttime and you love to write in the evening or at nighttime and you don't need to do that in an office next to other people who are doing the same thing. So this kind of negotiation, this one-on-one, you're the employee, it's your responsibility to make this appointment to negotiate a non-standard work agreement. These are called flexibility idiosyncratic deals, or ideals for short. My ideal experience is going to be different than the ideal that you try to negotiate with maybe even the same manager. And it's likely due to my personal characteristics, the approver's personal characteristics, the situation that you're asking for, and how you said it. So I conducted some research on this. I asked hundreds of people with managerial experience to review flexible work requests from different hypothetical candidates. Now, I went into it with some hypotheses, so some preconceived notions of what I might expect to find. And I did expect that women would be granted more flexible work. And I actually thought, too, that women who asked for caring reasons would be the most likely to be accepted. I also thought that if men went in asking for caring reasons, they might experience what we call fatherhood forfeits or some negative kind of impressions of men who ask to kind of break that breadwinner norm. So I thought if they made a business case, I am going to be more productive, don't worry about me, we're all set, I've got you. I thought that that case for the men would be more approved. And so surprisingly, that's not exactly what I found. I threw in a couple of other conditions too to see if we could test out some more creative ways of asking for flexible work, such as one around work-life integration, where you basically are allowed to do things like going for hikes during the day because it's going to have this positive spillover into the other domains of your life, including work. So the more that you focus on your own well-being across different domains, the more that scoots over to the other domains such as work. And I also tried this one just basically like, I will get these tasks done. It doesn't matter when or where I do it, but I will be accountable for said tasks. Now, across the board, as you might assume, the childcare case, managers were much more likely to approve that childcare case because we're used to it. It makes sense. It's a necessity. Same with the business case, though. When they made the case for productivity and they talked about the kind of mutually beneficial wins, that one was also fine. And no gender differences, so it didn't matter if men or women asked for either of those, they were more likely to be approved. My other two conditions that I was trying to try out, all right, those ones weren't too good, both less likely to be approved, and probably because they're a little bit less known. But it also brings a really important point. It so matters how you frame something. You know, you can't just go into these negotiations thinking, I'll just be honest and I'll say, I need to do this. It matters how it's framed. The other thing that mattered a lot was how many days you asked for. So, unsurprising to most probably, when people asked for 4 days to work from home, they were denied much more than when they just asked for 2 days. So there's definitely still a bias for managers getting people into the office most of the days per week. All right, and here's the thing that might surprise you, or I think this is the biggest takeaway, because despite all the things I just told you, all those conditions, all those variables, the biggest decider of whether or not flexible work requests were approved were the manager's preconceived notions of flexible work arrangements. So if that manager thought people aren't productive, they're just gonna go and get their nails done, I didn't look at you for that one, then that was the biggest predictor, despite the way it was framed, despite the gender of the approver, despite the gender of the requester, all across the board, it mattered what kind of attitudes they held. And that's really powerful to me. One, because as a managerial scholar, we look to see what interventions can we put in place to make change. So this research says a couple things to me. It says the onus is on individuals. People are getting different responses. They're framing things differently. They're not trained to know how to go into these. And should they have to? Do you have to know why somebody needs flexible work arrangements? Or do you just need to know the job's going to get done? Can you trust your employees to know that the job is going to get done? Another thing it told me is maybe COVID ironed out some of the gender differences in what's called flexibility stigma that we had been perceiving, where men were actually able to ask for childcare reasons, and women were able to almost make that breadwinner business case and not have those repercussions that we know happens when people violate gender stereotypes and roles. And it also tells me that we can help managers. This is what we do in managerial studies and in the consulting that we do. We help them change their minds. And so maybe it's seeing some positive cases of people who work flexibly and do it really well. So being able to shift the bar on what's possible and to negate some of those assumptions, or what's behind those negative beliefs? Why do they think people are so much less committed? Is it just because it's a different way of doing things than they were used to? And so that's the powerful thing to me. I think that we can help managers change their minds. And if we establish policies in place where if you meet X, for example, then you can work flexibly without having to tell us why. sometimes things are personal as well. Why do we need to tell everybody exactly what we're doing all the time? So I think these are great levelers, addressing the managerial limitations and really having those firm policies that are really transparent so that people, requesters, know what they're going in for and they know what they're going to come out with.